everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm really delighted to be joined by our distinguished speakers that my colleague Kendra Ard from the California State University System is going to introduce. She was kind enough and had the brilliant idea to bring in folks from Utah who are going to talk about Eduroam for higher ed institutions and their experiences. So, Kendra.
All right, thank you, Camille. So Kendra Ard from the California State University Office of the Chancellor. Thank you for coming to spend some time with us today learning about Eduroam. Let me ask you, how many of you in the room right now already know what Eduroam is? Okay, that's a pretty good number. And how many of you use Eduroam at your institution or support it? Okay. All right. Also a good number. All right. So if there were any of you that didn't hold up your hand and don't know what Eduroam is, I'm going to keep you in suspense just a little bit longer. And I will say back in 2011, I think is when I first heard the word Eduroam. It might have been 2012. I know it was a good decade ago. And I was in a room with a bunch of network engineers and network directors from the 23 California State Universities, and there was a network engineer from Sacramento State who said, there's this thing, it's called Eduroam, they have it in Europe, we should do it too. And he kind of explained what it was, and I am embarrassed to say I really didn't get it. I sat there and thought, I don't know why we'd bother, and I'm not going to Paris anytime soon. I don't really see why we would do it. And, you know, fortunately, there were others in the room that they understood the vision of what he was talking about much more quickly than I did. So we did begin implementing Eduroam across the 23 California State Universities, and once I began to understand the value of, I began to understand the value of it and the value that it could bring to our students. And so, and that value even became more apparent during the pandemic over the last couple of years. So the thing about Eduroam is that it's more powerful and more impactful. The more it expands, the more it grows. And so that's why I'm very excited that we have some colleagues from Utah here to talk about what they have done with Eduroam in their state. So I have Amanda Molinari and Jeff EGLY, who will introduce themselves more in just a minute, from the Utah Education and Telehealth Network. They have done some amazing things in Utah, expanding Eduroam. Their website says that their goal is to extend Eduroam to the 4 corners of Utah, but I had to point out to them this morning there are 6 corners in Utah, so I think they still have more work. And with that, I will hand it over.
Thank you, Kendra. Yes. Well, I'll just introduce myself really quick, and then Jeff's got some slides that he'll actually be covering. My name's Amanda Molinari. I've had the privilege of working as a project manager on Eduroam since May of last year. And prior to that, I was involved with the network operations side since the first phase of it. This has given me a lot of great insight into the entire stand-up process of Eduroam with our constituents.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff EGLY. I'm an associate director with Utah Education and Telehealth Network. I've been there for about 26 plus years. Excited to be here. You're doing amazing things here in California, and it's great to be invited by KENDRA and get to participate at this CENIC event. Just to give you a little background on Utah Education and Telehealth Network. Somewhat similar to CENIC, we connect all of public ed around the state, and we connect all of higher ed, most libraries, and then about 7 years ago, the legislature added telehealth, and so we connect a lot of rural hospitals, clinics, health centers around the state, help them tie back to the larger facilities along what's considered the Wasatch Front in Salt Lake City. So we also support healthcare. as it applies to Eduroam, I'm what's considered in Utah as the program manager for the Eduroam program that we're doing as what's considered a support organization with Internet 2. I'm also the chair of the Eduroam Advisory Committee with Internet 2, and be wrapping up my year here just at the end of the year with Internet 2. I think we're going to show you just a little quick video here, just give you a little more introduction to Internet 2.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sorry, I should have moved that on.
Yeah.
And then get into some of the drivers, what drove us to do what we're doing in Utah right now, and see if that resonates with any of you.
Okay, so this video, most of you that had raised your hands and you already know what Eduroam is, this is just what's covering that.
Eduroam stands for Education Roaming. It provides secure and easy-to-use Wi-Fi access in thousands of locations in more than 100 countries. Once you've connected for the first time, you never need to enter your details again. Eduroam will automatically connect you whenever you're in range of an Eduroam hotspot. The best thing is, the hotspot you're using never sees your details. So, wherever you're roaming, you can love to Eduroam. Eduroam. Simple, easy, and secure.
Thank you. Go to the next slide there. So if you're not familiar with Eduroam, it started with GEONT in the EU, and Internet 2 here in the United States is who we work with in the U.S. for Eduroam, and it's primarily within higher ed and research nationwide. What are the drivers for what we're doing in Utah? We connect over 1,800 locations around the state, primarily all fiber. There's the last couple of places we're working with on the Utah portion of the Navajo Nation to get connected with fiber, but what we'd consider a well-connected state for both education and healthcare. And we would get into these discussions, including Jim Stewart, our Chief Technology Officer, with our stakeholders around the state. We collaborate closely with K-12 and higher ed, and the discussion would often come down to access. We have this great broadband network. Our stakeholders are providing great resources and network services of their own. How can we improve access? And we see the benefits that higher ed is seeing with Eduroam. And we wanted to look at, is it possible to extend this into K-12? And so that is what we started looking at for a lot of reasons. We see gaps exist. We see the need for students to be able to gain access where they are, when they are. Digital teaching and learning, really big in Utah. A lot of districts going to one-to-one computing. We're very heavy on the Chromebook, although we do have a lot of also Apple and PC users, but very heavy on Chromebooks. How could we extend that access? How could we also make it easier for when students are visiting another district or they're visiting a campus, where teachers are all going to a service center for professional development, or there's a conference like this going on, where that's just the known SSID. People show up, students, educators, administrators, and they connect. We just started seeing a lot of reasons and drivers for why we wanted to push Eduroam further out into the education community, past specifically and just with higher ed. With that, we've started moving this program forward in a significant way throughout Utah. You can jump to the next slide. And as Kendra mentioned, working to push it to all 6 corners of the state. We've been effective in doing that. Our vision statement: participating educational faculty, staff, and students in Utah will have ubiquitous wireless access in all educational sites in the state and in other Eduroam participating sites throughout the world. We're doing that. We still have more work to do, but up to this point it's been a very successful program. And also because we have hooks into healthcare, the University of Utah, which supports a lot of healthcare, Eduroam's in clinics around the state as well. So we're finding more and more where people, as they travel around the state, are able to connect and benefit from this. jump kind of to the timeline here of what we did. So when we started talking about this, way back in 2016, pre-pandemic, so the pandemic wasn't really the driver. It was like, how can we do this? We started talking to Internet 2. We started putting together a plan as to how to implement this, how to make this work. And we started with a couple of early adopters. We immediately actually had districts that had the vision, they saw the benefit, they wanted to get involved. And we started off with, first off, 2 large Wasatch Front districts, the Alpine School District and the Davis County School District. And as we brought them up, they're really primarily connecting the educators and the administrators, but they immediately started seeing a benefit in the very initial stages by student teachers coming from Weber State or from BYU who were within those districts teaching, and they're authenticating and they're on. And they were commenting on that. They were benefiting on that. And so then we started planning and working with Internet 2 to how to build this into a pilot program. We spent some time arranging what that agreement, what that looks like, a contract. There was time involved just to kind of work through those details. And there still is today if you decide that, hey, we want to look at how we can do this with Internet 2 as well. Then we had 2019, getting this going with our contract, building it out. The first phase of the project went very quickly with a lot of our initial districts getting it set up. We have what's called regional service centers in Utah. Now they're considered regional education service agencies. They saw the vision. They help support lots of rural districts around the state. They wanted to get on. They saw this is a service that we can help support and back up our districts with. So they are anxious. So we saw a lot of momentum from 2019 to 2021. And then now we're at the present day where Amanda will talk about this as we go. We have most of our districts connected. We're working through our charter schools. A lot of our charter schools have outsourced their IT support to private entities. We've been working with them. They get this. And so working with them on that part of it.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So, okay, so that brings us to the present. Just go ahead and pull my notes up here. All right, so.
Next video.
Oh, we've already talked through this, huh? Yeah, so 90% of our districts now have Eduroam. So that's just sort of a quick little blurb. Okay, so we started to hear back from our Eduroam users about the service. So we put together a quick little video of just...
You can just go and it just connects and it works.
Students use Eduroam when they travel to visiting schools. For example, when students in our buildings, they obviously have connectivity. Then we put them on a bus and we have connectivity on our buses as we travel students to visiting schools. When they step off the buses, then they go into those other buildings and they can connect to those internet connections through Eduroam.
Outdoor access points, so that way anyone that can come can connect and enjoy its benefits.
The seamless opportunity for me to just connect. I don't even know that it's really happening. It's just that I always have Wi-Fi. Just use Eduroam wherever I travel and know that I'm going to be able to have connectivity.
They just show up, it connects, it works, and they don't have anything to worry about.
It's a seamless transition for our students to stay connected no matter where they're at.
All right, so both of those people were in the K-12 arena. And I think that's really great to share this video not only on our website, but also to others to just sort of see through that. So these nets benefits, we'll kind of both talk on some of these points here. Okay, so I'll just say this, that during the pandemic, Granite School District, they set up some buses with Wi-Fi and Eduroam so that their students could access network and school resources. I just think that's such a creative and innovative use case that I don't know would have come out any other way, than with the pandemic anyhow. But
Yeah.
And if you wanted to talk to
Yeah,
those
so,
other-
some of the things that we saw pre-pandemic is we started getting it in the districts, and then we started looking at what's considered service providers, SPs. And so this was all before the pandemic hit, is how could we extend this further out into to the community? And so one of the first entities we were able to get on is our mass transit, which on our front runner REL. And so students, educators, those that are commuting had access to Eduroam now on the REL system. It was terrific to have. And then we started working with the state of Utah Department of Technology Services and how we could get this up at the state capitol complex. How we could we get this locations such as the DMV. Everybody seemed to really have that vision. And then, as Amanda mentioned, then the pandemic happened, and we started just realizing additional benefits that having this secure Wi-Fi roaming ability has for K through 20. It became very apparent. Amanda, you mentioned the buses putting districts, and I think I heard that here today with the CENIC discussion, putting buses out in neighborhoods to provide Wi-Fi for those that just didn't have access that they needed during the pandemic, putting access points on the outside of schools. What we realized when looking at the reports that Internet 2 provides us, when that lockdown happened, we could see, for example, down in Monument Valley, Utah, in the Navajo Nation, that there was higher ed and K-12 students that were leveraging that access. We can't identify them personally, but we can see the institutions they're coming from. We can see, oh, there's a student from Utah State University or Weber State or Utah Technical University hitting that access point, as well as students from the San Juan County School District. Same with the buses in an urban area. It didn't matter if it was urban or rural. We saw that students were taking advantage of that ability to roam and gain access to the network when and where they were. So.
Awesome. All right. Okay, lessons learned. We'll both kind of cover some topics there.
Sure.
So you can go ahead and do.
So the one thing that's come about with this, and we think this is a very strong benefit, is minimal tech support. We found that our districts were well suited to take this on. For the most part, most had enthusiasm. They stood it up, they got it going. We provide a mechanism of support. Service centers provide a mechanism of support. The districts and charters provide a mechanism of support. But we found that it's been very minimal, and it actually reduces support when they have visitors on their campus and on their districts. And so it actually helps them down the road because they're not having to create unique SSIDs or support guest access. Those educators are just authenticating, they're getting on and taking advantage of it. There is some additional time for the LEAs to roll this out to students, and we learned this early on. And so you'll see the educators, administrators on first, and then they determine how and when to roll this out to students. And there's a lot of drivers. If it's a district-issued device, which is the primary means that most are doing it in Utah, then they want to address mobile device management. They want to address content filtering, and they want to address device support. You may want to talk about also the user
absolutely,
group.
yes. Yeah, and a little bit about the content filtering. That was something that, as UETN, we decided, hey, this isn't something that we're going to tell the districts how to implement. So that was really up for them, which brings me to my next point, the benefit of a user group. We have it once a month. It's one of my most favorite meetings. It's very collaborative and just a lot of fun. It's basically made up of a group similar to this, higher ed. Anybody could come in. So anybody participates in it. We have K-12 admins, people from higher ed, a local ISP that just signed up, and even people from other states. So if somebody requests, hey, can I sit in your meeting? Then I'll send an invite out and people can kind of just sit in and hang out for a minute. So Internet 2's Mike Zawacki, he attends our meetings. And we'll cover topics as they come up, and if there's any specific questions that maybe some of the people in our user group have for internet too. They're very active and they're very responsive. So we definitely appreciate that partnership with them. So those have been really instrumental in our support structure. We don't have all the answers and we don't have all the technical support, so they amongst each other can learn from one another. So if somebody upgrades ICE, for example, and they say, oh, my config is broken, who can I reach out to on what actually works? And they've got a group that they can work with on that.
I would add to that too, what's so great about it is it's really a blend of higher ed and K-12 technical participants on there sharing between one another. And so I think they just gain so much by sharing that knowledge with one another.
That's right. Okay. And then the other lesson learned of communication and marketing. So that, for example, we were hearing from the districts that, hey, I've got this set up. Nobody knows what it is or how to use it. I've got staff, I've got students, I've got teachers that actually don't know it's here, and what do I do about that? So basically I set out to help create some materials with our marketing team and our communications team, images and that sort of thing. And some of those are physical and some of those are digital. And I think I go into those in a later slide, but just in case I don't. They're like e-postcards and stuff like that. They're a lot of fun.
And I was just going to add, some of the things that have been developed is we have window clings that show that it's available in that school or that location. It might be an SP, so it might be a state or local or community center. We have little bookmarks that actually just give you the detail, how to access, how to get that from your institution, how to set it up. Coasters, other things that just help, we put in the teacher's hands, we put in the user's hands, just to remind them what's available and to make it easy.
Yeah, and so those materials are also great for SP sites. And for those of you who don't know, the SP sites are basically broadcasting the Eduroam SSID. So we'll get into that in a minute, though. All right, considerations. Jeff, I believe this is a little...
So some of the things, if you're looking at this and say you're looking at it from a district or community level saying, hey, how can we grow this beyond higher ed within our community? Some of the things that you just need to start talking about, looking at, inside your organization or your acceptable use policies, filtering state and federal guidelines. We have both state and with E-rate filtering requirements. How do you want to manage those devices if you're doing district LEA issued devices? And then we've also had some of our larger districts who've jumped in with both feet on bring your own device as well. And so each of you needs to really look at this, understand how to approach it from your LEA level, or if you're a community college from that level. But these are some of the things that you need to start talking through as you start entertaining. We want to find out how we can participate and start offering access to Eduroam.
Okay. Yeah, and the way that UETN kind of looks at it is that we facilitate those conversations amongst our different entities. So basically, any solutions that need to come out around filtering, around device management, those aren't really necessarily have to be coming from the support organization. We can just facilitate those conversations.
So, mentioned this earlier on, we found, at least within Utah, that our stakeholders that want to participate were very well equipped for the most part. There was some discussion whether we needed to stand up a radius, provide recommendations on how to do this, but for the most part, everyone was well suited to take this on and do this. They could jump into our user group. We have a knowledge base. We collect information. We post it. We also provide links online to Internet 2 and what they provide. But everybody, for the most part, was pretty well suited to do this. And if not, we could pull in the necessary resources to help walk them through. The primary cost is really in staff time. What's it take to stand this up and make this, if you're going to be an identity provider, an IDP, what's it take to stand this up, roll this out, bring everybody up, help with professional development, things like that. It was mainly in that resource time that we saw. As a service provider, an SP, great example from Weaver County Library, a large library system in the northern part of the Wasatch Front. Took him about 45 minutes to stand that up, and then he really hasn't had to address any issues with support since that time. Minimal hardware and software costs. One thing that we did in Utah, and this is kind of where we tend to play a role, is where's the most important place for us to be in serving education. And so we were able to identify the funding to actually cover the costs for K-12. So the user costs, we cover that. That is not a hurdle. We've lowered that bar for K-12 so they can take advantage of it. It's not a cost issue. It's really, all right, we've got the staff, we've got what we need to do this, we can turn this on. So if they have the willingness, we've at least removed that barrier for them by covering that cost, and we'll continue to do that year in, year out. So the ongoing direct and indirect costs, we're seeing low. We're seeing our stakeholders are finding that to be low. And then, Amanda, you can talk to the great work you're doing on marketing and communications.
So that's kind of a fun wheelhouse. And I'm actually from IT and network engineering, so marketing is something that it's just different. But we have a dedicated group that actually does that, and so I work with them prevalently. So marketing includes social media posts, one-pagers, vinyl claims, which Jeff just showed for the buildings, stickers, posters. We also have digital materials like e-postcards that we send out, and an email list. That email list is basically an opt-in or opt-out kind of situation there. The materials are provided to the district, sites, or service centers to distribute how they like. So a lot of times we just get them the materials that they need, and then they can send those out.
I would add to that too. Another thing that we do is any conference like this, we are present and presenting, and so we're very visible when we go around the state. If there's a teacher conference, a rural technical conference, wherever there's an opportunity to talk about the program, give updates, share what we're doing, we take advantage of that, and we present and love to ensure that everybody is aware of what's going on. Then also just ensuring that our counterparts are also taking advantage of the material information we have and reminding everybody that this is available and access is available to them within their organization.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So the current UETN program, as of last month, according to our reports, we have a total of 78 identity providers. Those identity providers are giving credentials to users. Most of you are familiar with this concept. It's just a username and a password. So they also troubleshoot user issues and provide support. Of those 78 IDPs, though, there are usually multiple sites associated with them. The IDPs, they're generally school districts, the service centers, or charter schools. We have 18 total SP, or service provider locations. An SP site is basically a hotspot. They simply broadcast the SSID. They don't do IT support or manage users. So the IT support is basically keeping their wireless network up and functioning. Those also have multiple locations behind them or associated with them. We have a local ISP, Centricom, that is going to start working on their sites and getting those stood up, and they've got a few that they are targeting for those. We also have the State of Utah Tech Services. They cover state parks, DMV, and other sites, a very large amount of sites. During a user group meeting, somebody says, hey, I was at whatever city DMV and I was on Eduroam, and I was like, that's great. It's just these random spots that people are starting to see, and that's our initiative going forward is, we've got our school districts, but how do we get these SP sites or these seemingly random sites involved? So, all right, we also have like residential sign up. So I've got a project that came in, and I called them and was like, some of this information looks a little strange. And they verified, oh, it's my house. I want to have Eduroam at my house. So I was like, okay, that's great. So we got them set up, and it's perfectly acceptable. So this covers what's under the UETN umbrella, so to speak, but there are museums, higher ed, and other sites that sign up directly with Internet 2 to provide Eduroam.
Yeah, so, and I think this little illustration really does represent, so we're talking about all the identity providers, but when we look at a Alpine School District, almost 100 schools there, so all those locations have it. We start looking at timesing that by all of these identity providers, it becomes very substantial. And then, as Amanda will talk about, we start looking at the Internet 2 reports. We see the huge impact the state of Utah has had by turning this up in all the state locations that we think really made sense, where people will frequent. And you find that you land in a community, and there is just numerous locations where you'll authenticate and you'll be connected to Eduroam. And so it's just exciting to see. You mentioned the colleges, universities, they were already on. One thing that did come along is we started working with K-12, our tech colleges were not participating in Eduroam. This momentum built within each community where all of the surrounding districts had it, the university had it, the tech colleges just jumped on board. That was the catalyst to actually get the tech colleges on board. So now I can look at Cedar City, Utah, and I have Southwest Tech down there, I have the Iron School District, I have Southern Utah University. It just continues to multiply, and so it's really been an excellent way to make it ubiquitous through education. It was exciting to see the tech colleges come along and jump on board as well, and we worked with them just to make sure they had the contacts they needed to work with Internet 2 and come on.
All right. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so most of you, that if you have Eduroam, and you probably do receive these reports, so this is one of the ways that we stay informed on the activity and the status of Eduroam, within UEN. So these are the monthly reports. Internet 2 creates and manages these reports. They also work closely with support organizations to improve on or make adjustments to the report as needed, which is really terrific. If we say, gosh, what is this information telling us? Like, I don't understand this. They might say, okay, maybe we reword it. Maybe we put it in the report in a different way. So they're really listening to support organizations on how to provide good reports and services and all of that. So let's see where we're at here. So
where are they?
Okay, yeah. So I'm sorry. So what we're seeing here, though, is basically a snapshot of part of the report that displays where our Eduroam users traveled to in the world. And this is just a month snapshot, and this is for, I think, June of this year. And they look different, from month to month, so. Okay, and where our visitors are coming from. And this next image is where our users are coming from when they visit an Eduroam-enabled site in Utah for UETN. Because Eduroam is a secure wireless service, we don't see details on specific users or anything like that. Our constituents receive individual reports that they share with their leadership as well, which we kind of talked about. The reports, they also show which sites are no longer authenticating users. So if we see a trend over time that's at a 0% authentication rate for a site, we as a support organization can look into that report and say, hey, maybe I should reach out to this site and let them know they're not authenticating. There might be something wrong here. So there's lots of really great use cases for the reports.
I was going to add one just last comment on that last slide. When we start looking at locally in Utah where everybody's coming from, one that comes up a lot is BYU. And one of the reasons we're seeing BYU so much is that university's SSID. That is the SSID they use for Wi-Fi on that campus. And so the students automatically have it. As they roam around, student teachers, others that are traveling around the state, we see them often at the top of the graph as they're roaming around the state. And so that's been a discussion also with Internet 2. Should that, are institutions willing to consider Eduroam as the primary SSID. It looks like Brigham Young decided yes to that answer, and so they are doing that, which is kind of interesting. Just see the trend as we watch it on the reports that we get from Internet 2.
Yep, yep. All right, so what's ahead? This one's both of us covering this slide.
So looking ahead, we're getting it out into the districts. 90% of our districts are done. We're working to get it through our charter schools as well. We're starting to really focus on other opportunities, whether it's museums, the zoo, aquariums. You have a very famous aquarium here. Where are students going? Where's education going? Those are places that we want to get. And then we also want to think of places that are K-20, not just specific to K-12, K-20. And so looking at, as Amanda had mentioned, Centricom, one of the private ISPs, looking at where they're offering free Wi-Fi. Continue to work with state government to roll it out in other areas. So Utah's Department of Transportation is going to start providing Wi-Fi access at some of the rest stops, and they have offered to start standing up Eduroam there. We do it at all our conferences, so now we have some conference centers that are Eduroam ready when we show up, so it's already there. The Provo Conference Center's one. We have the Homestead up in Wasatch where they like to do a lot of retreats. We got Eduroam up there. Amanda, you just got off a call on this nonprofit that's offering.
Yep. Yeah, so we put together meetings. If somebody says, hey, I've got a potential city, site, anything like that that's interested in signing up with Eduroam, or I want them to be interested in it, can we get these all together, have a good meeting on that? So I set up the meeting, but I also put together a Google folder that has SP-related materials just specific to that. It includes a one-pager, a slide deck, some postcards, and those are to be used to engage with those potential SP sites. So the materials go over benefits to their business and communities and a little bit about how Eduroam works. So it's sort of enabling for these people to, really talk about Eduroam as SP sites and sort of get that message out in a cohesive way.
And one thing that Internet 2's entertaining doing is getting rid of the term service provider, SP. When we're working with folks, say, in the private sector, that really doesn't mean a lot with them. So they're probably going to transition it to hotspot, change the SP name to hotspot, which is probably a little easier to connect with when we're talking with folks that are outside of education.
Yes. And so I do try to use those interchangeably. Hotspot is kind of the better nomenclature, I think. All right. So onboarding constituents. So this is sort of our process. It took a few signups to fine-tune the process, so it was not perfect out the gate. But it's very simple and easy for our operations team now. The site or district, they would fill out a form on our website as either an IDP or an SP, and if they change their mind and they say, oh, I just want to be an SP or an IDP, we can change that easily. So the form starts a project in our project management software, and they will receive either an MOU or an agreement to sign. Our network operation team then completes the stand-up. Normally, if they have any issues during this part of the process, they might reach out to me and say, hey, I've got a site that's maybe having an issue with this. What documentation do we have to pass on? So, and then we provide promotional materials to them. We sign them up, with their permission, of course, for the user group and the email list, and then the project is closed once Eduroam is working at one or more sites. Okay, and then support considerations. These are questions as a potential support organization you might start thinking about. So defining what level of support makes sense for your organization. How does moving from a project to a program work in your organization? And there's a need for buy-in from your organization's operations to support the project or service. That's an important one to communicate not only externally. I've said a lot about marketing and communication externally outside of UETN, but it is actually really important to be communicating internally as well with all the groups that know, hey, we're supporting this and this is how. What level of promotion and marketing works, and who will prepare and maintain a knowledge base and documentation. All right, so this is a quick example at one of our districts. So many districts have their own landing page that offers Eduroam support. In the case of Nebo School District, they created an onboarding page that has different user device types listed and how that user enables Eduroam on them. So it's a beautiful page. If you go to Nebo's, I actually listed it there, nebo.edu/Wi-Fi. You'll see like just the graphics are really great. They select the different images there that so we also provide a filter configuration guideline that is unique to UETN constituents. That guide is found on our website. It's used by K-12 sites only, so those are just some of the things that we provide at the district. Okay, building an Eduroam community. So we're using active ears and listening for opportunities to assist in problem solving. We use the user group as a soundboard for ideas, and they collaborate amongst each other. There's an email list we use to share materials, and they have options to sign up for that. So these are just sort of the things that we've kind of already covered. And then we maintain documentation on our website for people to peruse, their white papers, guides, that sort of thing. And the community can reach out to us to identify SP sites.
Okay, I'll come up here and talk about it.
All right.
So how can you participate? Let's go on to the next slide now.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right.
So you heard the term support organization. So when UETN set out on this and we did our pilot, we stood up this program, then we worked with Internet 2. We really, working with Internet 2, we're defining how to do this as a support organization. And so the initial idea with this would be a regional network or a state network. That would be that support organization. And so after we had this, they released applications for a new cohort. And so the following year, Connected Nebraska, the state of Nebraska, and the Sun Corridor, Arizona, both applied and came on board. And so what we have seen is Nebraska's been extremely aggressive on this. They have rolled out Eduroam throughout the state. They still have a lot of work to do. They got a very large ISP on board that's offering it through all their community Wi-Fi. They've been very effective on getting not only their districts on board, but also working with private entities that want to be a service provider. Taking a page from us, they're making Eduroam the primary SSID at conferences they host. They go out of their way, if possible, to stand up Eduroam. So it starts becoming common knowledge, and that's kind of how it works with our organization. You know, Eduroam's going to be the primary solution. Everybody shows up prepared. Kind of also drives home that, hey, most entities want to participate in Eduroam and have that, so they've got that access as they move around. The SO program, Support Organization Program, we think has been a really good success, but one thing that I think that Internet 2 realized is they needed to be able to define this down into some bite-sized elements. Not everybody is ready to take this on as a state. We look here at the state of California, it's a massive undertaking. And so this current year, last March, they awarded their first on-ramp participants. So this is 5 IDPs. So you can really take it down to a community level. Say you're a community college, you've got the library, you've got 3 school districts, you all want to work together to stand up Eduroam and make that. Then it's bite-sized, and then can determine how you want to build on that. And that seems like a really good fit in a state the size of California, where you may want to kind of look at trying this out from a grassroots level. So 2 states have done this. Link Oregon, they're participating this year as an on-ramp. So is Connecticut Education Network. So those 2 states are doing the onboard this year, and they're going to grow it from there. And so it just seems like a really good approach as a means for you to say, hey, we want to do this. We want to extend Eduroam beyond higher ed, provide that access, that benefit to all in education. And that's a good way to go about that, is with this on-ramp. So they moved the application process to early spring. It used to be at the end of this year. And so this is a perfect time to think about this. If you think, well, this is something we want to take on, it gives you some runway to start considering, asking some of the questions that we talked about earlier in the presentation. What are those considerations? How do we do this? How do we support this? What are some of the other things we need to ask? And I can tell you, from the UETN perspective, and I don't think I'm stepping out of line on the Nebraska, that we love to visit, we love to share what we know, and so you're more than welcome to reach out to us. We'd be glad to share what we have. If you get on our website, we have a lot of detail, a lot of documentation that you can refer to that maybe give you some great context, and also some great links to Internet 2 on our website, or you can go straight to Internet 2, looking up Eduroam and seeing what's available and what they're doing with the support organization. So really want to extend that out there, and jump to the next one. And just to reinforce, leverage the knowledge of the support organization. So right now, there's Utah Education and Telehealth Network, there's Connect in Nebraska, there's the Sun Corridor working in Arizona. We're starting to see some great things with Link Oregon and in Connecticut. And so there's going to be a lot of resource that you can draw on, talk to. We love to share. We think this only gets better as it grows. And the one thing that is a real takeaway, and I think Kendra, you may have mentioned this, is some of your educators and students really don't realize how powerful it is until they travel. And so we'll have a superintendent go to the state capitol, suddenly they're on. We'll have a teacher go to the Smithsonian, and suddenly they're on. Will somebody go to Dublin or Barcelona, and they find they've authenticated and they're on. It's a fantastic way to really extend and provide access, and for us, it's all about access. So that's really our presentation. We really would love to answer any questions that you may have regarding the program, what we're doing in Utah, and love to share.
So, my name is Michal Krsek, coming from the Czech Republic.
Are you able to take your mask off
Yeah.
a little?
From Czech Republic, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Czech Republic. My accent is still
Oh,
bad,
you're just
still
fine.
bad.
I think it was the mask. It was too muffled.
So, one of the reasons we are facing in Europe is, as we have a more different organization, different filters are spread through the access points, through the networks.
Oh, different filters, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that. Do you have any way how to visualize presence and set of rules that are applied on a specific network?
I have it on our website. You're able to see those guidelines. They're under the white papers. And you can actually see this, but they're specific for our IP space that we actually allocate out to the school district.
The problem is when I'm coming from the outside, I'm just logging in to the Eduroam. I'm not aware which organization is providing that IP, that specific IP, that network. So I don't know that address I need to look at.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, so you're having a problem just authenticating right up.
Yeah, you are not the only organization that is facing this problem.
So the only filters that really should be applied are in the K-12 arena.
At least within Utah,
Yeah.
that's what we.
So
you
any
said
sites outside.
K2 arena, but I don't know what K2 is.
Yeah.
And I don't know who runs the
Well,
network.
so if you...
okay.
Yes.
So I'm just in a room or next to the building, got the Eduroam network, and some sites don't work. For some, I know, good reason.
Yeah.
But it would be great to know which networks are banned at that specific location.
Yeah, the only thing that they do is on the Eduroam website is that they'll actually show on there which locations are filtered. And so if you were saying, I want to use this location as an Eduroam hotspot, and you know that it's being filtered, that might not be a good location for you. And so that's really the only thing that I could say to that anyway. But they've opened up filtering amongst each other though.
Yeah. And what we've had to do, and this isn't going to be your answer because I think it's going to have to come from Internet 2, is when authenticating on other networks, we always have to point that user, if they run into a problem, back to their identity provider.
Institution.
Where we always have to point them.
And then they're able to look it up and say, oh, what happened? And then through that site, and then they would contact the site and say, hey, I've had users over here.
If I have a problem.
We are still in a global environment, so it's, I don't know, it's 2 p.m., so it's like 11 p.m. within the Czech Republic. So if I call to my home network, you know,
won't be able to,
there should be a technical mechanism that
Oh, there are
visual.
technical contacts.
You need a means to be
Yeah,
able to
so
do that here. Yeah.
the technical contacts are listed as the sites provide on the information that is required to be filled out. You have a technical contact.
Yeah, but the
For the site.
But the support me in Eduroam context mean I
Yeah.
need to call to my home organization.
You could,
which
or
my-
you also have the information for the site's technical
yeah, but
person.
I don't know where I am. Who is, you know, I am somewhere nearby the bus,
Right.
getting the.
That's,
And you
that's
don't
getting
get-
tricky. But if you're at an elementary
global.
school and you
So-
say, I can't get on this site, you do have a technical contact listed.
There should be I would say, well-known website that has probably anycasted the IP address or something like this.
Interesting.
That is actually something we could even take back to Mike at Internet 2. That's a great point. So if you're here in the United States, you're encountering a problem, how can I get online and find some additional support that lets me fix that problem, authenticate, and get on? I hear that, so that makes sense.
Thank you.
We'll take that back to
Yeah.
Internet 2. Thank you so much for the
Yes.
input and the comment.
Camille, can we do 2 more questions? Do we have time?
Hi, Marcus from Nordunet in the Nordics. With regards to, you had a slide earlier about the problem with bring your own device and getting users online. I know Shiant has a application that they're working on, or rather have deployed, called geteduroam.app.
Yes.
With-
Yeah, and the
which
chat tool and all of
exactly,
that. Yes.
exactly. Yeah, no, I just wanted to give it a shout.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Howdy, George Peak, UCSC, University of California, Santa Cruz. So one interesting thing is I was abroad traveling, right? I was very, very surprised. I was able to connect to Eduroam in quite a few places. Some of them were not as politically not as stable as some other places. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that some connectivity, right, and other folks visiting our campus, for example, from other locations. What about malicious actors or anyone who is connecting to Eduroam that could potentially try to infiltrate other networks? And how is that policed or could be controlled? Does that my question make sense?
It does. Yeah, the home institution will have record of that user's account and everything. So if somebody were to say at that site, hey, I've had a data incident, a breach or a security issue, and they say this is the time that we're narrowing it down to, and they can maybe look through logs, that sort of thing, they would have to go find
Kind
that
of
user.
bigger. Think of like institutions themselves or the countries they're coming from. We're talking about espionage level, or somebody who is wanting to. Now they have access to your network, they can essentially do lateral attacks.
There are actually things that at the school district level they're breaking up their network. We have this documentation on our website actually.
So
it's
you do
with
recommend
VLANs.
separation?
VLANs network separation. Yes, and we have an excellent guideline written by one of the members of our security team who did that same analytic, I guess, of how that could happen and how to separate out those networks and the recommendations for that.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're able to look on our website, should be under the white papers as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Great questions. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, I just want to say thank you so much for traveling all the way from Utah to come talk to us today about Eduroam. And for those of you here, thank you for joining us at this session. I'm really glad you did. For those of you who are from an organization that does not currently utilize Eduroam, I encourage you as you walk out to think about what it might mean to have it for the community that you serve, and look at the resources on the